Paulding County Board of Commissioners, July 22nd, 2014 work session. It is election day. Do not forget to vote. I'll welcome all of our invited guests and elected officials. Let me recognize elected officials in the room. Mayor Debbie from Hiram. Who else do we have? And the former Commissioner, Mr. Kirby, thank you for being here. Thank you all. I'll remind you to turn off all cell phones, Nextels, and pages. Interrupt the production. For our invocation and pledge, we have Pastor Cord Franklin with Mount Olivet Missionary Baptist Church. Also, I have with me people wishing to speak in the public participation. So thank you very much. Would you stand with me if you're able?
Let us bow for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning that you allowed us to come together to this blessed place, Lord. We might just go forth and do your works and your will. Lord, we pray right now that you would bless this commission board, Heavenly Father. Bless them one by one and name by name. Lord, bless all of the citizens that have gathered in this great chamber, Heavenly Father. Bless all of our elected officials, dear God, and also bless all of our law enforcement. Lord, as we stand in this chamber of overflowing people, Lord, let unity overflow in this room. Let us be reminded, Lord, that we're here to have a better Paulding County, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children. And Lord, as we go through the agenda this morning, if there are articles, if there are items that, Lord, we all don't agree upon, allow us to disagree without becoming disagreeable. And that when the adjournment is given, Lord, and when we leave this chamber, we still live in the fellowship of citizens of Paulding County. Continue to let us strive, Heavenly Father, to always go up higher and do better. That in a generation to come, they will know that on this day, we as the citizens of Paulding County set forth to do that which is not only right, but righteous in your holy eyesight. So Lord, we thank you right now. We give all honor and praise to you. For your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. 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 If you continue standing with us, let us look to the flag and have our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Beautiful prayer, Pastor. Thank you so much.
Pastor Franklin knows something about the law enforcement he is a retired Punitive line police.
Thank you. Thank you for not on the agenda, but a surprise guest for us this morning. It is my honor, and I would like to have Kim Denmark. She's walking across America for veterans. Kim, would you mind coming to the lectern and just tell us what inspired your heart to do this?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody. This is a local, and she kind of told me you guys were having a meeting, and I'll be quick, very quick. My name is Kim Denmark, and I'm from Dayton, Ohio. 104 months ago, I left my business, which was a staffing agency in Dayton, Ohio. Left the business, my home, my cars, everything, to begin to walk. This walk was inspired by the Lord. I was a very nasty, arrogant young lady. Everything was about money. Everything was about look at me. And I began to treat people less than people. But you know, you can be like that and something will get your attention. I became very ill. And in my sickness, I got to see where I was going and what I was doing. Through a vision, the Lord showed me where I was headed, and it was not heaven. And in my sleep, I asked God to forgive me for all the people who asked me for help. Simple things, diapers, prescriptions. I could help them, but it was about Kim. And one day, he healed me. And when he healed me, he gave me something special. He gave me a smile. And he gave me a vision. And the vision that I've taken upon is to walk across this nation. And I'm now walking, right now, 16 states, to bring attention to homelessness, and specifically homeless veterans. If I interview 12 homeless people or families, 4 served in the United States military. I'm taking my message across the nation, because as they stand on the front line, we are their priority. But sometime when they come home, they're not our priority. So I'm standing on the rooftops and in the mountains and saying, never forget who these soldiers are. I love you guys. I've done 16 states, 5,040 miles, 28 pair of shoes. I'll be walking through your city on 278 East with a big orange sign and an American flag. If you've already haven't seen it yet, it looks really strange, but I have a purpose. My ultimate goal is to build a self-sufficiency campus in the state of Georgia, of all my 50 states. I am going to go ahead and do the other 33, but I'm going to make a stop in Washington, D.C. to bring them all the data and the research of living with homeless, eating with homeless, sleeping with homeless, and finding out who these people are. This young lady, thank you. You guys support, she's got a program for kids that are homeless, that are getting in trouble. Give her an appointment. That's all I'm saying. I love you guys. I hope I wasn't too long.
I don't know, you could have found a better person.
Love this guy. His name's all over the country, guys. He's a good guy. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a veterans coin. We dedicated this park out here to veterans. So that's your coin.
You did?
That's a challenge coin.
Wow.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor.
Under announcements, the Board of Commissioners would like to present the Public Safety Appreciation Award to Laura Smith, Kennel Technician on Paulding County Animal Control. Would you please come forward? You got to be in front of the firing squad. You got to do that.
Good morning. We selected Laura Smith for the Public Safety Award. She's our part-time kennel tech, and she's so quiet and hardworking that you hardly know she's there. Therefore, I had our immediate supervisor and the road supervisor write a little something on why they believe she deserved the award. Kennel tech supervisor Jennifer Wigley. Jennifer, you raise your hand. I'm going to read this for her because she didn't want to come up here today. Since the day Laura Smith started Animal Control, she has been an asset. She comes into work every day with a great attitude and are ready to work. Laura has been flexible with her schedule whenever we needed her and never complains. She needs very little direction, and she knows her job and sees to it that she works to the best of her ability every day. Laura Smith deserves this award because of her dedication, her excellent work, and her contributions to animal control. She's a pleasure to work with. And then also Road Supervisor Eileen Culbertson. Do any of y'all know her? She's definitely not shy. Eileen, raise your hand. Eileen said, since the first day that Laura began working at PCAC, she has been a very important part of our team. She only works part-time, but does the work of a full-time person. She comes in every day with a positive attitude, and I've never heard her complain. She attacks every task with determination and the desire to complete it. Laura does not participate in any drama or rumors and does not talk negatively about anyone at our facility. During the ice storm, Laura was a team player and braved the ice and cold to make sure the animals were taken care of. Her love for the animals is very evident in how she cares for them daily. So Laura, you're respected and appreciated very much by your supervisors, and your hard work and dedication do not go unnoticed. So congratulations.
I'll come up with you. I got you.
You don't have to talk.
Somebody come on this side over here.
Nobody wants to be you.
No way out.
Becky, come on.
We got one more. We got one more.
You don't have to do extra duty tonight if you don't.
Minutes, the July 8, 2014 work session minutes and the July 8, 2014 board meeting minutes are available for your review. The Board of Commissioners would now like to recognize Kelly Brown for achieving her certification as a professional public fire. If you'll come forward. Good job.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity this morning to recognize our employees. It's much needed in a lot of areas. This is specifically, I would like to recognize Kelly for her hard work and dedication to her job. A few months ago, Kelly mentioned to me that she was interested in pursuing certification as a professional public fighter. And if you don't know, she works in purchasing. Preparation for this certification is entirely a self-study program. Kelly studied for several months on her own time while she was also preparing for her daughter to graduate from high school, as well as caring for a 15-year-old son. As you can see, this took dedication to her job for her to complete this task. In May, Kelly took the 4-hour exam, and she was recently notified that she did obtain her certification. The Certified Professional Public Fire credentials are recognized throughout public procurement profession and demonstrate an individual's comprehensive knowledge of public procurement. This comprehensive exam is required to confirm the candidate's mastery of the variety of public procurement concepts found in a Universal Public Procurement Certification Council body of knowledge. Thank you for allowing us this time to recognize Kelly and professionalism as well as the hard work she brings to the Bobby County Plan.
Nice accomplishment, and thank you very much. If I can make an announcement that I've appointed Kyle Bagby as my appointee to a Board of Ethics to fill the unexpired term of David Walraven, which expires on 8/31/17. There's no invited guests under bid awards. Discuss action to award the countywide raised pavement marker project to the low bidder TMI in the amount of $56,500.
This is a routine item, and on July 11th, we opened bids for this project of raised pavement markers. This will put markers on 49 Florida County roads that have been scraped off in storms or water, or for some reason they're not there anymore. We are recommending award to the low bidder, TMI, in the amount of $56,500. DOT has noted that these prices are within 5% of the GDOT weighted average for these items, and we have worked with TMI on that as well. So unless you have have any questions.
So this is replacing all of those that you scraped out and ice.
Those are not replaceable either, are they? They can't be re-glued.
That's more of a DOT question. That wasn't an option in Scott's plan.
No.
No, they get chipped up quite a bit, so it costs more to go find them.
Any other discussion? Thank you all. Reports from committees and departments. Dave Munford, switching from code red to Nexel and text to 911 update.
Good morning.
Morning.
A couple of projects to give you some information about. The first one will be the text 911. So back in April, we became the first 911 center in Georgia that could take text messages from Verizon wireless customers. As of Thursday of last week, Sprint customers are now on board with text 911 and calling. And we did the testing on Thursday with several county employees assist us, and everything went fairly smoothly. So this is kind of noteworthy from a public safety standpoint of the callers or the texters, but also from the fact that they were able to pass information from one vendor to another. So Sprint is passing information over to Verizon or to TCS, and it came through, which means we don't have to use different logins at the 911 center to receive different text messages. We can do it all on one platform. We have a conference call scheduled later this week with T-Mobile. They'll be the next vendor on board probably within 2 to 3 weeks. And we still have no commitment from AT&T at this time. But after T-Mobile comes on board, we'll have 3 of the 4 major vendors that are able to send text messages to us in the county. To date, we've only had 2 messages, 2 people that have actually sent text messages. Neither one of those were an actual 911 call, so, but the system did work.
And this is not to replace call, this is as another route.
That's correct. We still use the call if you can, text if you can't as our slogan for this campaign. We want people to call 911 and text if they have no other choice. Hearing impaired, speech impaired, or you're in a situation that you can't make a telephone call. The next thing I'd like to discuss is as of September 29th, we're no longer going to use the code red emergency notification system for reverse 911 calls and for weather warnings in the county. Several months ago, I was presented with a proposal to look at the Nixle platform, Nixle 360. We've been using Nixle for quite some time to send out non-emergency notifications. And Ashley Henson with the Sheriff's Department, Christina Cooper, our Deputy Director, and then Mary Ann Phipps with the Fire Department, they got together and they compared the 2 systems to see that if we would get the same service out of Nixle 360 that we're getting out of Code Red. And what they found out was that the Nixle 360 platform gives us more flexibility, it's less expensive for the county, and it provides at least the same level of service. Actually, it provides a higher level of service than Code Red. It's a lot easier for our folks to use it. So we're going to start a public campaign here pretty soon that we're going to have the public switching over from the Code Red to Nixle. They'll have to actually go in and sign up for it. It's not quite set up ready for them to sign up for yet, but it will be in the next couple of weeks. And then once we get everybody signed over the 29th, the Code Red will go away and Nixle will take over.
Could it make phone calls like Code Red?
It will. It'll make phone calls, do the weather warnings, it'll do the same thing that Code Red does. It also gives us a lot more flexibility as to how we can send those messages out. From what we've experienced, it's actually a little bit faster than Code Red.
We're already signed up for Nixle and Code Red, you still have to switch.
If you're already signed up for Nixle, you're already in the system. The only thing that you'll probably want to do is go in and change your weather settings once we get the weather up and running. So this gives you more flexibility to choose from different types of weather that you want to be notified of. Where Code Red only notifies you of 2. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Now we come to the part of the program where we have public participation. If you want to make a comment about agenda items, we have 3 people to sign up today to do that. First is Chris Byron on new business item number 5. Ms. Byron, you have 5 minutes, and Ms. Tibbetts will let you know when you're
I'm ready. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to speak with you all today. Today I want to talk to you about Resolution 1417 regarding the issuance of the $3.6 million bond that's scheduled to be voted on later today. The taxpayers of Paulding County have repeatedly made clear through referendums and the recent election that they oppose commercial service at the airport. In light of public opposition and the pending environmental assessment, we believe Paulding County should halt any further work toward commercialization of the airport. Why move forward on the issuance of this bond when the airport's future is unknown? And why potentially strap the taxpayers with more of a tax burden by paying the interest on a $3.6 million bond for the next 10 years, particularly since the taxiway widening has been completed? We suggest holding off and allowing the money that's been lent to the airport by the IBA and county to be absorbed by the county's general fund. At the end of the day, it would be a monumental savings to the taxpayers. However, this may all be a moot point, since I understand that the plaintiffs on the bond intervention lawsuit have filed a motion for reconsideration with the Supreme Court, and that motion is still pending. In the event the Supreme Court does not change its decision, and the airport authority and county are given the approval to move forward with the bond, and you do, the residents certainly expect the airport authority to follow through with their agreements and obligation to repay the loans they were given to complete the construction of the taxiway. The loans I'm referring to are the $1 million loan from the IBA and the $2.9 million loan from the county general fund. Unfortunately, the airport has a history of not repaying its loans from the IBA. With the pending Ultra Vires case, which is challenging the legal lending authority of the IBA, we trust the $1 million loan will be promptly reimbursed to the IBA and not borrowed again, at least not during litigation. We also ask that the millions of other dollars the IBA loaned the airport already, which are still outstanding, be repaid immediately. Furthermore, we also expect every dime the county lent the airport authority for the taxiway construction to be refunded to our general fund immediately. And we expect the 5 of you to make sure that that happens. According to the contract, if the bond is issued, it will then be time for Silver Comet Terminal Partners to put $500,000 in escrow in order to pay for the first year's worth of bond payments. Brett Smith did not come through on his offer to finance the money needed to complete the taxiway construction while the bonds were on hold, which he announced he would do at the Chamber's breakfast on November 19, 2013. But we certainly expect him to come up with the money now, since he is contractually bound. Silver Comet Terminal Partners' contractual agreement to pay the bond payments is the residents' assurance that we do not have to assume any tax obligation for this bond. We expect, once again, you will make sure we are protected from an additional tax burden by making certain the contract is adhered to and executed. If it is not, the citizens are then on the hook for bond payments to the tune of $500,000 a year for 10 years, since bond payments are ultimately the responsibility of the taxpayer. Gentlemen, we ask for accountability across the board from both you and the airport authority. So please do the responsible thing by making sure the terms of the loan agreements, loans which were backed by taxpayer dollars, are implemented. Can the residents of Paulding County count on you? Thank you.
Bill Gursky, talking about new business item number 2. You have 5 minutes, and I will let you know when you get.
Okay. My name is Bill Gursky, and I'm the owner of Crossroads Grocery in Dallas. It's at Dallas Ackworth Highway 92. I've owned that business for 15 years. It's family owned and operated. And I wanted to talk to you for a moment about the Sunday alcohol sales situation. I took the liberty to start a petition just a few days ago so that we can possibly get it on the November ballot. And although I have it going just for several days, I have over 420 signatures already. I hope to complete it by this weekend And I hope to have the amount of signatures of people whose voice want to be heard probably equal to the amount of people that voted on this particular item last year, which I think was a little over 1,100. The funny thing about it is, in the 2012 election, many of the counties around us voted on the alcohol issue. Unfortunately, Paulding County didn't have the opportunity to vote. They had the opportunity last year in 2013, but again, unfortunately, the amount of people that participated was terribly low. I believe 1.5% of the eligible voters voted, which was about 1,100 people out of 80,000 people. So I don't think that's a real fair consensus of opinion about this most important item. I'd like to just mention briefly what the advantage to Paulding County would be to the residents and store owners. First of all, to Paulding County. By having Sunday alcohol sales, it's going to add extra volume, extra revenue to your county. It's just sitting here, I hear people talking about wanting money for certain things, and in this position, there's only so much money to go around. But alcohol sales will generate to the county 3%. There's many stores, small stores like me, that sell that. You've got large stores in your county like Kroger and Walmart and Publix. And just a quick observation, if these stores were allowed to sell it on a Sunday, it would generate thousands of additional dollars of revenue to your county. Thousands of additional dollars of revenue. So by doing that, it's going to help the county provide better services, schools, roads, parks, and just better all-around activity for the county. The other thing is it's going to show the residents here that you did give them a vote, an opportunity to voice their opinion. Last but not least, it keeps you in competition with the surrounding counties. As you probably know, we are totally surrounded by counties that do sell this beverage on a Sunday. And again, you want to attract people into the county, and you have to keep up with what's happening. As far as the advantage to the residents, it's convenient. They don't have to travel across the county line to make this purchase. By passing the law, the stores that don't sell it now will create more business, and having more activity in the small and large stores, it's going to create more working hours for the Paulding County residents who work in these stores, and it's going to possibly create more jobs for the people that are looking for employment in Paulding County because of this increase in activity on a Sunday. And again, for the residents, the most important thing is it's going to give them better services and more services that maybe right now financially we're not in a position to say yes to everything. As far as the store owners, of which I am one, the advantage to us is it keeps the revenue here, right? It keeps the revenue with us. A lot of businesses operate on shoestrings, and the difference of increased business on Sunday or not might make the difference of them staying in business. Now you might say, well, what do we care if they're in business? Well, they employ our residents in Paulding County. Plus, a lot of us don't realize, but all these businesses, large and small, are tax collectors for the county. They collect state tax. I have a small store with 8 employees. Last year, we collected in taxes, state taxes we had to send off, over $220,000, of which Paulding County gets a percentage of that. If a store closes, not only is employment lost, but that tax collector is gone too. And again, the other advantage is we're going to get back old customers. People that came in my store that would buy some cigarettes and a paper, they don't come in anymore to buy that cigarettes and paper. Because they can go to Paulding County, get their beer, and as long as they're going there, that's where they're going to get their other items at the same time. Oh, okay. In closing, I'd just like to thank you all, and I passed a sign and it says Shop in Paulding County. Let's keep the revenue in Paulding County. Thank you.
Our third person asking to speak is Kathy Helms on whole business item number 1.
Good morning. I'm going to be brief. And I'm not sure, I sent Mr. Barnett an email yesterday on this agenda item. I am not necessarily opposed to the PRD that Four Star is building. But in a review, I noticed that Four Star had contributed to Mr. Barnett's reelection campaign this past year. So I'm just asking that he abstain from the vote in that. If that's, you know, I said I'm not opposed to the project necessarily, but I just think that in a sense of propriety, that it would be, you know, very proper for you to abstain from that vote. Thank you.
Just to let you know, if we didn't vote on things like that before, incidental donations and things of that sort, there'd never be anything voted on. This is not substantial. So substantial means $5,000 or more in any given 1 year. So a small campaign contribution is cited as an incidental and doesn't affect mine or anyone else's thoughts about how they go on any issue. The issue stands on its own. So this is a matter of clarification, just like to point that out. There's no consent agenda under old business. Number 1, 2014-07Z, application by Four Star USA Real Estate Group Incorporated to rezone approximately 80.74 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District and PRD Planned Residential District, PRD Planned Residential District for a maximum of 173 lot single family residential development with a possible senior living pod. Property is located in land lot 698, 742, 743, District 3, Section 3, west side of Seven Hills Boulevard, south of Nature's Walk Parkway, Fieldstone Lane, and encompassing the eastern portion of both sides of Pine Ridge Path. This is in Post 4. It was tabled from June 2014 Board of Commissioners meeting with 19 stipulations. It passed the Planning Board 3, 1, and 1. So I'd like to have your input.
My question, did we get the issues that caused us to table it worked out with the other property owners?
They will not be using Pine Ridge Path.
Pine Ridge Path is off the table. They reduce their lots and have an interest coming straight off the road.
Are we going to change that in your zone? Or how does that work? I guess my question is, I understand that, but how does that legally work?
The actual location of the entrance, that'll be determined in plan review through after DOT reviews it. There was a stipulation number 8, that addressed specifically the upgrade to Pine Ridge Path. That stipulation will be removed for your vote tonight because it's not applicable.
New business, number 1, public hearing regarding the fiscal budget 2015. I'd like to ask a couple people to speak. Mike Jones, would you speak as the county administrator? And then Tabitha, would you add some comments before we open up for public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, first I want to thank you for placing such interesting things on the agenda when I had to come talk about the budget. We have airport bonds and moratoriums and zonings, and it always makes it a little bit challenging.
It's called combat pay.
This will come up in just a second. What I wanted to do was take an opportunity to go through the composition of what a county budget looks like. So kind of rip it apart and take a look at the components that go in it. This will work better when I connect it up. There we go. We've not done this in the past. What we've done in the past is provide all the background and the specific dollars in all these places. But this year we wanted to spend a little more time to go through it. I'll be as brief as possible. And then when I'm done, Tabitha Pollock, our finance director, will be available to answer questions that are specific to this budget. When we start talking about a county budget, I pick the first 24 terms that comes up. And you have to understand what each one of these things mean and how they're related to each other. Some of them are revenue, some of them are expenditures, some of them are pieces of revenue and pieces of expenditure. Some of them are budgeting items and some of them are assessment items. But all of these things, it's important to understand what the definition of each one of these things are. These are the variables where this is where you start when you start talking about a county budget. So once you understand what all these things mean, budgeting is easy. You take whatever the dollar amount is you want for each one of those variables, and you stick it in this equation and you solve for the millage rate. Piece of cake. I mean, I make light of that, but let's start back at what a tax dollar is. That's really what we want to do here. So most of the emphasis on county budgets has to do with tax dollars. So let's follow a tax dollar. So when you get your property tax bill and you pay $1 of tax, the first 60% goes directly to the school board, and then they do their own budgeting. And the state gets a tiny fraction of that. 10% of that dollar goes directly to fund the county's fire system. 7% pays for the county's debt service. And then you have 23% of that dollar left for maintenance and operation. That's the discretionary part that the board starts working with. So out of the gate, you've lost a fair amount of that tax dollar that will go to run the county. This is what the historical property taxes that have been levied. This is the Board of Commissioners part. So I've taken the state, I've taken the school board out, and you can see it moves up and down. This part here is the general. This is the M&O. The M&O makes up less than half of the general fund budget, which about 40%. So 40% of the general fund is the only part of that is tax dollars. That's what this blue line is. This red line was added in 2008, and that's the fire millage. And this green line here is the debt service. And you see this jumped in 2010. This is when the debt on this building, the $65 million, started being funded with debt service. So that's what all these things are. And if you notice, M&O over the last 4 years has actually stayed relatively constant. Here's a blow up of what that looks like. So this is just the M&O portion of your tax bill. Pretty flat. And if you notice here are the millage rates that are associated with that M&O. Those have not stayed flat. They've moved up and down to offset the changes in the digest. This is where, so we talked about the 23%, that discretionary part that the board has to work with. If you take that 23% and you say, all right, that 23% of that tax dollar is 23 cents. Let's follow that 23 cents. Half of that goes to public safety and DOT public works. And then you have 2.2 cents goes to run the courts. The assessment and the tax commission gets about a penny of that. Parks and Rec is about a penny and a half. Government services, those are things like zoning and permits and voter registration, things like that come out of 2.5%. And this non-departmental is kind of an obscure description of a lot of things. Some of the bigger things in non-departmental, this is where your capital outlay comes from. This is replacing equipment. That's the biggest chunk. This year it's about $3.7 million. You have the retirement that's funded, about $1.7 million is in that department, non-departmental expenses. Workers' comp, liability insurance, those are the sort of things that come out of non-departmental. You can't put it in any one department. It doesn't fit water, it doesn't fit DOT, it goes here. So that's where those 23 cents are allocated. This is what your entire budget looks like. So these first three, these are those same tax dollars we're talking about. So about a little less than half of this is M&O tax dollars. The balance comes from other funds. We'll talk about those in a second. Again, you have fire and you have the bond. But the balance of the budget, and this year's budget is about $125 million, comes from non-property tax sources. You have SWOST, 911 fees, water and sewer funds, court funds, and other revenue. These are relatively small next to these others. When you add all that up, that's your county budget. That's $125 million. But of that, this is the only part where you have discretion. The rest of this stuff is pre-programmed. Your general fund, this is the blue line I showed you here, this blue line here. This is what it's looked like over the last several years. And if you use 2009 as a baseline, and you start looking at where this budget has ended up, this area in red, this is departure from this 2009 baseline. And if you add all those red lines up, that's about $48 million of funds that are missing. This is where the cuts came in, year by year. We're almost back to 2009 levels. Not quite, but we're getting closer. Just like we looked at how you distribute a tax dollar, this is where the general fund tax dollar, this is the revenue that comes in to fund this general fund. Again, about 39% of the general fund is from property tax dollars. This big chunk down here is a loss, a local option sales tax. There's 159 counties in the state of Georgia, and 156 of them have a loss. Thankfully, Paulding is one of them. If you did not have that loss, that's part of the sales tax, that would have to be supplanted with additional property tax revenues. And you can see where the other revenue sources come from. Cable franchise fees, insurance premium taxes, charges for services, and this wedge here is fund balance. This is effectively the county savings account. So a piece of this budget is coming from fund balance, and as I understand from some of the commissioners, we're going to talk more about that. Again, I said the budget was $125 million. Well, that means there's a lot of opinions on how that money gets spent, as there should be. There should be discussion on the budget. The chairman has proposed a budget, as he does every year by June 1st, and then we all collectively, department heads, commissioners, do our very best to make sure that the dollars are spent where they're needed the most. That's all I have for you. Tabitha is here to go over FY 2015 proposed budget and respond to any questions that you have.
That's a lot of information. And I'm going to be brief because sometimes conversations like this can get very confusing. So it's easier for me to get some feedback before I start answering what I think are questions. This year's budget does use an amount of fund balance in the amount of $3,698,537. Most of this, well, if you look in the budget, there is a capital projects page, and that's to replace some equipment, projects that we made that have been discussed that are going to come up throughout the year. Those funds are budgeted in that $3.6 million, and the rest are operating. As you know, most of our expenses are personnel and benefits. We did not have in the request that we received. Operating expenses among departments stayed pretty consistent because we all know where we are, and we're trying to grow, and we're trying to restore back to what we were doing pre-2009 when the digest started to be reduced. And just so you know, the value of a meal, which that's if you took all of our digest and assessed it at 40%, and you divided that by 1,000, and then you multiply that by the millage rate. So when you divide it by 1,000, the value of a meal in 2009 was $4 million, and the value of a meal for the 2015 budget year, 2014 digest, is $3.2 million. So our digest, we're still suffering from some of those reductions. We're not completely back yet, but we have worked with millage rate to try to balance that and to find the actual cost of government. So unless you have any questions, I will stop there.
We ask our questions before the public hearing or after?
We'll go ahead and have our discussion, and then we'll call the citizens for their discussion. We'll open up public hearing. Go ahead, if you have questions.
Y'all know that. One thing, of course, we're using roughly $3.7 million of fund balance, which of that 2.1, I believe, is going for the state patrol office and the driver services budget. And so it's about $1.6 million of capital expenses that prior to the recession, we used normal operating funds. So In other words, I know we went through years past, which I sent in an email that I felt like, of course, that ship's already sailed, but that we should have not rolled the millage rate all the way back. And I understand the logic behind it. What I would like to propose is that going forward, as I understand in coming up the value of the digest, we subtract out homestead exemption.
Correct.
Okay. Many counties around us have an expanded homestead exemption. And what this does, I would like to see us, which it takes a vote by this commission, takes legislation, and takes a vote by the voters, is that we expand our homestead exemption from the state mandated $2,000 to $10,000. That it be phased in over a period of 4 years, $2,000 per year. To give you an idea of what that does, every $2,000 would, now it only applies to you living in your house. If you're renting this house, or I own a house that's a rental house, I don't get homestead exemption. So homestead exemption is a tax break to the homeowners and citizens that live, some work, but pay taxes based on that. $2,000 under the current millage rate that's proposed would be a $14.53 tax savings for every homeowner. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if you multiply it times the number of homestead exemptions that were filed in 2012, that's $526,871. But what this does is, instead of rolling back the millage rate, as that homestead exemption comes up, you're giving tax breaks to the residents, to the homeowners, to the people that are paying taxes on their home. To me, this is a better method of giving some of this back, which is what we said all along. In other words, as we raise the millage rate to keep that income level that Mike showed us, you know, we said we'd roll it back, we'd give it back. That's where the mistake would be if we did what this would do. And this is there forever. If we install this $10,000, this is not something that a future commission 4 years from now can take away. In other words, this is something, and the citizens have a voice if we pursue this. And I'd like to see us move forward with that by adopting a resolution that would ask the legislation, and I'm not going to ask you to adopt it today, but asking the legislation to adopt a resolution that we extend our homestead exemption. And this is only on M&O. In preliminary discussions that I've had with our tax commissioner and our county attorney, we can choose what it goes to. They can go to fire, they can go to bond debt service, just like M&O, or just like homestead exemption doesn't go to debt service now. Doesn't affect the school board. School boards is their decision. This only affects that little 23% that Matt talked about.
Couple of questions. What other counties are doing this?
Let's see, Henry County has a $20,000 homestead exemption. Fulton County, I believe, is $30,000 homestead exemption. I'm not sure about Douglas County, and those are the ones that I pay taxes in and are aware of.
So if our services to the county were to stay the same, would not that require taking more out of the fund balance?
Not necessarily, because same thing this year. Your rollback was based on overall revenue staying the same. You reduced your millage rate in order to keep revenue staying the same. Homestead exemption is backed out of that, so that would lower what the mill would give, is what you calculated on.
That's right, it would lower what we
A mill, just for the record, a mill, last year was worth $2.8 million. The mill this year, is worth 3.1.
And those numbers, I think, it's up here, I don't know if you'll be able to look at them. are being discussed. But if you look at this first section, so my fingers over that top section, where you have the reduction, those are the exemptions that Thomas mentioned that would increase. So you would take your gross, and then your exemptions would increase by a larger amount to give you a lower net number.
I mean, there was approximately 36,000 homestead exemptions filed in 2012. That lowers that 3 million or 3,200,000.
10,000
Yeah, it would lower roughly.
by the amount of the reduction for the exemption.
I don't know about Henry, but the other two are experiencing a pretty substantial tax increase this year. I don't know the planning process will happen. If it did, they are advertising tax increases.
And it does sometimes get confusing because we do have, you have an increase either side of the equation. You have an assessment, and then you have your millage rate. And those two have to multiply by each other to get your taxes to. Well, overall, because we don't go by each individual bill, but overall, we take our total assessment, multiply by our millage rate. If it shows that we're going to collect more than we collected last year, then that's a tax increase. Either side of the equation can increase. If one side is reduced, then you can increase the other side, and it doesn't, as long as the end result doesn't result in a tax.
Just like in years past, we raised the millage rate, but revenue did not change.
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
I mean, in some of the years that Mike showed, we raised those millage rate in those years, but the revenue didn't change.
correct, because I think overall our digest for the past few years has been reduced by 40%.
Our digest increased 14% this year, correct? Of that, there was a portion that was new construction. What an increased homestead exemption does is the people that are here, it gives them the break. You still pick up the new construction. That's how you increase.
That's certainly more discussion. Any other comments to Tabitha before we open up to the public?
I got a couple more.
Okay.
The library budget, which this year their proposed budget, I believe, increases by $200 and something thousand, $100 and something thousand is due to personnel costs, which that's actually, most of that is hit us from last year's budget because they delayed hirings, which is something we've done in this year's budget. In many areas, there's delayed hirings, and which that helps this budget, helps it make it look better. But come next year, of our delayed hirings planned in this budget, there'll be some $200,000 that the budget's going to automatically increase when you put those people on for a full year. That's part of her increase. The other part is a $100,000 request for books. Now, as I understand what's been done in the past, she bought books based on what the state, West Georgia Library, whatever it is, gave us. You were concerned that you were going to get nothing this year, so you requested $25,000 per library, $100,000, or maybe it was.
It's a different breakdown.
But ultimately, roughly $100,000. But you've since found that the state is going to award us $33,000. One question I got is, in the past, these books, were they part of her budget and then the grant offset it? Is that the way this will be done?
In the past, we have not received grants for books. We've actually, or to my knowledge, now West Georgia Regional may have received the grant and then they may have provided us the books. And if they did, it takes me out of the equation, so I don't have that information.
All right, in this case, is that what's happening, or is West Georgia going to get the grant and buy the books, or are we going to expend that?
This is funding for the libraries to purchase those books. They purchase those through West Georgia Regional through their program. It's just to add to the supplement that they get from West Georgia through the state.
Okay, so we don't actually have, we're not gonna receive a check for 33 and then write a check for 33, we're just gonna get, we got a charge account, how about that?
There you go.
Okay,
We have given $25,000 to West Georgia Regional for books for all the libraries in the past. And what this is for an increased amount for 4 libraries. We haven't increased that since we got it.
I would like to propose a change that instead of $100,000, that we actually change that item to 35, which would give you $50,000 toward, or 60, almost $70,000 toward books. It's a beginning. I know in the past, we haven't funded this, but there are a lot of other needs out there. You know, we have, books are important, but roads to drive on, I know we delayed paving on roads we had to. I know under this year's budget, it would take 36 years in order to repave all the 950-something miles that we have. In 36 years, we'll be on gravel. So, you know, we've got a lot of other things that we need to do, and, you know, I'd just like to propose that we decrease that to $35,000.
Not that it has anything to do with us, but the school system's getting 2,500 new computers this year. They do a lot of their work on computers instead of books now. They'll have a total of 11,000 computers in the school system. So if we did trim back the library a little bit, I know that other people use the library too, but we've got a lot of libraries in our schools. Basically 11,000 computers also in schools.
Another budget item that I had put comments on was the line item for the airport. I know the budget for next year is $303,000. We've already spent $422,000 due to the legal bills that the airport has incurred, which I think is the last count I had about $140,000, if we're going to continue with funding an airport department, we know that $300,000 is not going to be enough. I mean, the legal bills can stop. You know, two things. One is we need to strongly look at what is it really going to take to fund it next year. Now, which brings me to my, I guess, issue that I've had since day one, since on August the 12th, I think it was, in 2008, that I had to vote on my first budget after being sworn in 5 days earlier. And it came to the realization that the only vote I had for the airport was money. I don't, the way it's set up is the airport authority operates the airport. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent about that. It's the facts. They don't vote on money. They don't have the issue of money. I mean, it's the way it's set up. We're the only ones that have the issue of money. So we vote to spend it, or either we approve it, that it's already been spent. What I would propose that we need to make changes in that system. This is something Blake and I have talked about. We fund currently the IVA and have always funded it through a intergovernmental agreement. We write them a check once a quarter, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
I would propose that we shift to that with the airport, that we do away with the airport department, that the airport hire its own executive director, or they move from the airport department to the airport, that the airport authority we enter an intergovernmental agreement that we give them the responsibility for money and the airport. I mean, if you're giving them the decisions about the airport, they should have to look at and make the decisions about the money also. It makes a whole lot more sense. I mean, because he who controls the money controls things. But if you've already spent it or committed the county to it, what other options do you have? Now, I don't know what everybody else thinks about it, but that's my opinion.
Basically, you're saying, come up with a budget that you're gonna give the airport, allow them to run on only that budget.
That's correct.
Don't fund them everything else.
I mean, as Commissioner Carmichael said, that there can be things such as a tornado come through and wipe out something. That's a different story. Or in the case that the instance that caused the airport authority to actually file for the environmental agreement to expand what they call the terminal modular area or whatever it's called, was we were entertaining a company that the state brought in that would generate some 1,500 jobs. You know, not saying that in some cases that you're not going to have to, but as far as daily operations, I would suggest we enter into an intergovernmental agreement. We agree on their budget, we agree on a plan and move forward. Give them a check and on a once a quarter, and if they sustain legal bills, I mean, it's their decisions to make.
Well, the legal bills are unknown, or for the most part unexpected. I wouldn't really equate it to a tornado, but it's not anything that you can plan, Tommy.
I understand, and they could come back and request more, but, I mean, you realize that the FAA suit cost the citizens of Baldwin County, we paid bills for $80,000 for that one suit. No vote, no nothing. It was approved, which nothing was done wrong. I'm not saying anything was done
Let's just say
wrong.
recently-
But decisions were made to hire that attorney without decisions on money. There was no talk of money. This is who we need to hire. I mean, I forgot one at the meeting and they may have talked at it, but ultimately, it's part of your budget that you're going to vote on $422,000. You're voting for those people.
Well, it would be inevitable that you have to ask for more in the current climate, litigious climate at the airport.
Again, they know what they're facing. I say put it on their responsibility to determine what their budget is. What is it needed for? It's what you ask Scott to do. In DOT, you ask him to plan what he needs in order to maintain the roads. Now, there's give and take, and no, Scott doesn't ever get what he wants to pay for roads.
But Scott's not being sued. He's not, there's not economic espionage by a corporation in Atlanta to cause Baldwin County economic problems. Scott's
And
attached to
I'm not saying that within that intergovernmental agreement, if their funds are out, they can come back and ask for it. They actually have an opportunity to generate revenue. Under the plan, they have an opportunity to generate revenue through services offered in tax. Not tax dollar revenues, but revenue from fees and stuff. The tax dollars actually come to us.
Greg, I've listened to your comments, and I've wondered, there were two steering committees that were created some few weeks ago, some months ago. One was specific to the IBA, and one was the airport authority. Is this a proposal that steering committee is considering, and if so, would that come back to us in the form of guidance?
I don't know. I know the IBA is not, what I'm talking about is not part of the IBA. I don't know about the airport. But ultimately, even those steering committees, if this board does not vote for it, it won't happen. Those steering committees are recommendations, okay? And unless the majority of this board goes along with it, those recommendations will not happen. Now, whether we pursue it, I'm just saying we got to have this discussion. We got to change something, and it's within our powers to do this.
Okay, Okay, at this time, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'll pause for a second. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Graham's saying. The problem I have is when you're running your own business and when you're running your own home, whatever your budget is, that's how you make decisions on what you do. You decide to fight a battle or get into a battle, you got to decide that you're going to be spending some money. So I understand where Mr. Carmichael's coming from, and I understand what Mr. Graham's proposing. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Tommy. The airport's out there making decisions, and ultimately we have to fund in some of these decisions. And to me, that puts us in a bad spot. We're accountable, and this Board of Commissioners, I think it's good what we're doing with the steering committees. However, I think that what we did was we put citizen steering committees together because this board would not get together and discuss these issues and make some of the tough decisions that need to be made and have needed to be made. I don't know if I'm in agreement of 100% of what Mr. Graham said, but I think we need to have the discussion. We need to make some changes, and I'm not for having any authority that goes out and does anything against the wishes of the citizens. And I'm not for having any authority that we support financially in any way, or we appoint that's out doing things that the citizens aren't aware of. So however, we need to fix that to where any authority that we have I completely understand that sometimes we're private to bring businesses in, but to do something that citizens have voted on, and do something that citizens have spoken on, and do something against promises that were made, I'm not in support of any authority that we have to fund, or we have to support, or we appoint people to do that. I don't think that's right. I do think we need to have this discussion, and I do think we need to make some changes to get things in the right direction. And Tommy's right. They're choosing who they want to go attorneys and how they want to spend to fight the battles that they're in. They got their self in.
They absolutely did not. There were pawns used by Delta to sue this county. Please, last you move. And so if you ask some of those defendants, they will say that it didn't cost them anything, so they just lent their name. Well, who's paying for this? We're paying for it in the form of having to hire attorneys to fight this case and to tell you how successful they are. Excuse me? You have the Supreme Court that ruled 6-0 in favor of this county. You had a Superior Court that ruled unanimously for this county. So it's not like we're going forward and trying to make things up and make it happen. We've just been a defense here and won both those cases. So, you know, it's a difference of opinion, but we have a $50 million asset. And some people would like to see it landed in peace. I'm saying that we can use that. Mr. Kirby's here. Their intentions were to make this an economic engine, and it could be, if we were all behind this, to make it happen. This is not the second Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, as you've been scared to believe. It's only a small commercial item to be added, so we bring an MRO to do maintenance and operations. So, you know, sitting on that board and you know, you got 4 or 5 different lawsuits that are brought to you because a company can afford to do that, and it's a piddly amount to them, but to me, it's huge.
And I'm not in my comments in any way, I'm not saying the airport authority or the people on it. I'm just trying to achieve changes to me that make more sense. You're still gonna have the discussion of money, and yes, you're still gonna get sued, but ultimately, day-to-day operations, you know, the money and the decision should go together. So in order to move this along, what I'm hearing from what's your name, Mike Jones? The airport authority committee, steering committee, which Dave and Todd, I guess I would ask y'all then to, you know, have your committee look at it. If we as a group don't want to move that way, to have your committee look at, okay, should the funding be where the decisions are? And if so, you know, how do you make that happen?
Well, they've tackled this with great fervor, and they're meeting every Thursday night after every board of commissioners meeting. Very qualified, quality group of individuals with business and some aviation background. So they've tackled it strongly, and are looking forward to making recommendations to the board. But there's certain, and you know, we could have a discussion about what you have set up. But all I'm saying, the point I'm bringing out is there's unknowns. You know, if your family has part of your house burned, then hopefully you have insurance, but you can think of scenarios where it just goes beyond, like Commissioner Pownell said, what you could plan for.
And I understand
As
that.
far, one more thing, as far as the wishes of the people, people that call me from Post 1 are strongly supportive, the majority are strongly supportive of the opportunities that exist at our airport. And, you know, you can have an election, you can have a vote, and the vote that was 30, 40 years ago was just for the bond money. It was just for the money, to use tax money to buy the airport.
Really didn't want, really was hoping this wouldn't go this way, but in the 70s it was voted no, and in 99 it was voted no. There's citizens that voted for us up here, that voted us in office. The citizens that voted commissioners in the past and ones in the future, the vote's a vote. And if the ones that wanted it so bad that got out there and vote, the vote would have been a different vote. And I really, you and I are friends. We're on different sides of the aisle when it comes to this. Mr. Austin, you and I, but
Well,
it was
we stand up here.
it was allowed to go against the will of the people when it was done behind people's back, and that's why we're in the spot we're in. We can blame people from outside the county that people say are funding, and I don't know that. I don't know. I have no knowledge of that. But the bottom line is, there's people inside the county that feel like that their leadership inside the county and on these authorities have went against them. Some of y'all are upset because of people outside the county coming in to tell us what we can do or not do. But there's a lot of folks inside the county that are upset, citizens that are upset with the leadership that they have here and on these authorities that are not doing what they've asked to be done. And we're the ones that are elected to do that. That's our job, is to represent the people.
That's right.
I'm done, go ahead.
Well, no, I hear everybody, and we talk about the people that are upset, but that's all we do. My proposal is a specific proposal to consider. It's not saying that there are people unhappy or whatever, and we can talk about that all day long, which is what we've been doing. I'm offering a proposal for us to consider, so I'll ask you today. Now, I got 3 more questions. District Attorney's Office. His additions, this year's budget includes the amount, our portion of the grant that he'll continue to get, right?
That's correct.
So it's those, but he's asking for more besides those.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. ITF funding for the bonds. What I understood when we sold those bonds, that we would continue a budget item, but what you're proposing to do, that those bonds, if there is not enough of project improvement fees, that you're proposing to take those out of debt service, correct? Is that how?
For the
ITF
repayment of the
Yes,
bonds.
yes, okay. And then the only other thing, now I'm gonna mention that, so, okay.
All right, at this time,
I got one more thing. I thought, well, I was gonna let Mr. Graham handle it because he was doing such a good job. And, I figured he was gonna go there, but he didn't. Marshal's Department. I see we've got 3 new deputies that we're gonna do, 2 for the administration building, and 1 for the airport. I think from what Blake said the other day in a meeting that we had, that we could maybe not need the deputy at the airport maybe for another 9 months or so, as far as security. And I assume that's what the deputy's for, is security. But our budget with the Marshal's Department is going from about looks like 524, 525 to 727. Up 200,000. I'm not saying it doesn't need to increase some, but I don't think the deputy at the airport we're going to be needing anytime soon. Maybe I'm wrong with that, and I'll be glad to stand corrected.
Yeah, I'm not sure you're not right about that. There's a very good chance that it won't be needed. There are occasions where we will budget positions so that we know the dollars are in place. Prime example of that, we had 2 positions in community development last year that we budgeted because we saw a trending up in like single family home permits. So we had building permitting inspections that needed to be done. We didn't hire them. I mean, they were budgeted, and that money just went back into the general fund, but there was a placeholder there for it. You know, if I had a crystal ball and I could see 12 months in the future, I'd stay out of hot water a lot, but I don't. So I did budget for that marshal position. The other 2 were attributed directly to the new gun passage law. We hired 2 new deputies for the marshal's office, and that's what provides security here at the building. But I'd say there's a real good chance that that 3rd one may never get hired. Certainly won't be hired unless it's needed.
Same thing on the fire, there's nine positions that won't be hired until the action starts.
That's correct. Now, theirs is a little bit different in that they have to go through a substantial amount of training before they run a fire station or a large part of the operation of the fire station. Chief Pelfrey's here in the room, and he could write a book on that. But I trust his judgment. We have a new fire department, a new fire station that's about to start constructing in the south part of the county, and then a new West Dallas one, construction date to be determined later.
So, but there's 9 of those guys.
I don't have that.
Yes,
Well,
that's what Chief Earwood and I talked, and he said that, you know, until construction started, it does take 9 months, I believe, to put them through proper training, but that they wouldn't hire them until they knew we can have station.
You answered the question on the marshals. I would, not that it has anything to do with the budget, I would like to see us maybe work together, see if we can have some uniformity about how we bring people through the scanners on each of the 2 buildings. I think there's been a lot of discussion on that, and I think some pretty good points that some citizens have brought up, so we could kind of look into that. It's, if you go into the judicial building and go through one process, and then you go in this building, it's an entirely different process, so I'm not sure exactly where that comes from, but if we could work on that, it'd be great. Thank you.
We certainly wanted to be consistent. We designed the system around what was going on at the courthouse. I'm not sure what inconsistencies exist, but I believe they ought to be the same.
Yeah, I mean, you could go in the courthouse and put your stuff in the tray and kind of walk through, and if it goes off, be scanned. But if you come in here, it's put your stuff in the tray, and, you know, before you know it, your belt's off. And so I think that's where some of them have actually come up here to do something here, do something there, and they've experienced that the same day. And so that's where I think we could work together to resolve that. It'd be great.
Where the biggest fear comes, and the reason we have it there is up in the tax office. Predominantly women work in those areas, they stay scared to death for their life. As a CEO, I think it's my job to protect them the best way I can. And, you know, when we had to take it out, there wasn't a gun law that said you could bring it in here. It's a law, you could bring it in. So it was a budget item. We caught a lot of flack. We ended up having to put a deputy upstairs just to protect them because people lose their temper. And I don't think they pre-plan anything. It's just an incident that could happen. I don't want to wait till after a very serious incident to say we're going to make a mistake. I'd rather ahead of time disarm that person that might explode or lose their temper or whatever that scare most of these women to death. So if there's inconsistencies, Captain will look at how we go about doing it. Are we at the part of the program where we can open up the public hearing?
One quick comment. I mean, conversation would be complete without talking about animals. So a quick comment about animal control. We brought Miss Elizabeth Holst in, and she on June the 18th, 3 of the commissioners were there. There's a lot more progressive ideas being used in 300 plus counties and municipalities around the United States. And we're behind. Captain LaHome and Chuck Brand have made some proposals to the budget that really are just breaking in the last few days. So they're not on the budget, or they're not suggestions. There's things that we can talk about. But I wanted to bring it up. Appreciate y'all putting out the numbers in ways that we can improve animal control. We've got a fantastic staff out there, and I think very dedicated people. We're still lagging behind there. That's an area that I would like to see improve upon. Thank you.
I'd like to open up the public participation and open up the hearing on the budget. You're welcome to come to the lectern. Mr. Coggins, if you'll come to the lectern. Is there a paper to sign in? If you'll sign in and state your name.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you. Really got caught off guard by a remark that Tommy made a while ago. I wasn't prepared to say anything on that, but would like to say a couple of words on it for the homestead exemption. I don't know why these things always come up in a time there when our taxes are being raised. Somebody on the Board of Commissioners will make some kind of remark that we need to get with the General Assembly and get something done. I'm for the homestead exemption. I'm for the raise in the homestead exemption. But I also remember not too long back, before your time, Mr. Austin, that we was going through a very heated discussion on some raises, on taxes, share administration. And at that time, Mayor, they made a resolution, and y'all passed it. The Board of Commissioners passed this resolution that we treat the senior citizens the same as the other counties, like Cobb County, for instance. At age 62, the folks in Cobb County didn't have to pay any school tax. And the Board of the Commissioners were just all over themselves about that. Yeah, we for that. We're going to, and voted for it and sent it to the state, supposedly. But nothing ever came of it. It was just a farce that y'all or the commissioners had said at a meeting to try to pacify the people that is opposed to some of the things that's going on in this county. I would like to talk about 2 or 3 items. And Tommy, I know you know that I'm gonna talk about the IBA. Because it hadn't been you. Because it hadn't been too long ago that y'all talked about not having any control whatsoever of the IBA other than the budget. The budget was y'all's control of it. And I look at this budget with the IBA and I see that there's been very little change in it. I didn't hear any of you comment that we need to take some money back away from the IBA. Now, to me, the IBA is totally out of control. In fact, I got up here and I spoke against even having an IBA, and I still think it should be just completely done away with. Now, I'm looking at some of the things that the IBA done, and I talked with Tabitha earlier, and I looked at a financial statement, some comprehensive annual financial statements. And this is one ended in 2013. This is the most current one that y'all have posted. And I look at the IBA, and I look at what we owe, taxpayers owe, from bonds from the IBA. And the total amount, interest and everything, is $30,881,000. Now, I look at the IBA's budget, or what y'all have put in here as a budget, and I see $500 and something thousand. Now, I'm gonna ask the question, I guess some of that is going to pay IBA bonds. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yeah,
How much is that?
$230-something thousand a year of that 500 pays bonds that were issued in 2006, 2003 for the purpose of acquiring industrial property.
Are we talking about the bond that was issued in 2003 to build the park, the industrial park over around the airport? I mean the jailhouse in that area.
I don't know what necessarily their intent was, but that is along the same lines, yes. That's what the $3 billion, and they actually ended up using it on the part that were enrolled and some other things. But that's part of that, of the 500-something thousand, 235 is to pay those bond payments.
Well, if I understand it, that bond was issued in 2003.
Correct.
That money sat there, nothing done with it. It was reissued under this administration right here, I think in 2011. Am I right?
That sounds about right. 2012.
2012. And from there, what was done with it? It never had, it was redone because of the lower interest rate is what was told to the people.
That's correct.
It was a refinance.
And it was refinanced on the assumption that it was still gonna go over there to fund that, that industrial park over there. Was my understanding on it. I guess the minutes can be pulled up pretty easy on it.
They had used a portion of it at the time of the refinancing toward one of their other projects, which would have been the Macklin Road property, or City of Dallas property didn't exist at that time. But about 1.8 million of that was used on the Holden Commerce part where Enroll is located.
And that's what the bond was issued for? And
Bonds
that's the
were
point I'm trying to make right
Bonds
now.
were issued for the purpose of my understanding, purchasing and development of, go ahead.
They were issued with a description for an industrial park.
And it was the industrial park when it was first issued in 2003 over by the jailhouse, am I correct?
No, it's not the same. Actual location is probably not the same, but the
I understand it's not the same. That's the point I'm trying to make, is we're issuing bonds. The IBA is issuing bonds. And they're issuing them for these reasons right here. And later on, we find out that we're not getting what we issued the bonds for. We got Interroll involved in it. They didn't get all that money. And there's some more money out there somewhere we're paying for. We're paying for that. But the IBA is using the money to do other things with it.
If I've got it correct, the bonds were done in 2003 to purchase, to build an industrial park out there close to the jail, okay, is what it is. And some of that money was used, and I'm not sure where, probably somebody here probably knows, but about $1.2 million was used before it came up in 2012 where we had the opportunity to refinance the bonds. I personally would have loved to pay the bonds off and just been done with it so that we wouldn't have that payment. But the rest of the board didn't see it that way, so I believe we all at the time voted, even myself voted, to refinance the bonds, and the remaining 1.8 was left, and I believe that was used out there for the new site at the spray fields, if I'm correct.
I guess to try to, what you're asking is, what was the money sold for and what was it used for? It was sold for the purpose of, there was no specific industrial park. The use was to be toward an industrial park. Okay. What they planned it for didn't work out, and they used it toward industrial park, which I named 3 of them, and it's somewhere in that list that the IBA split it on.
So
Just in case y'all are worried, there's no time limit on a person speaking at this hearing. So just, we're not granting Mr. Coggins any more time than we would anyone else, but during this conversation, just so they understand, you have as much time as you need.
I understand. So the $230,000 that the IBA is given here is paying for the bond, the 2003 bond.
Yes.
And I assume somewhere in this budget, we're paying for the other bonds that's out there.
Not that I'm aware of. A lot of those things that you, well, no, there is one. Yeah, go ahead.
In the 2003 issue, there was a sewer treatment plant as well as this IBA.
Get that closer to you. So
That 2003 sewer treatment plant is being paid with water sewer revenue. So it's not tax dollars paying that, but water sewer revenues are paid for that debt at that sewer treatment plant.
It's not the same $3 million worth of bonds.
This $30 million is owed right here.
Two issues at the same time.
Right, that's what I mean, but he's talking about the $3 million on just that the IPA had for industrial park.
I thought he was asking about all of them.
I am.
Yeah, he is.
I am. The point I'm trying to make, and I talked to you before the meeting about this thing right here, the comprehensive report. If I'm looking at this thing right, and I understand it right, for the year 2014, the Industrial Building Authority owes $1,920,000 on principal, $843,945 on interest, for a total of $1,803,000. Where is that money budgeted in here to pay for that?
If you look in the section just below there.
Pardon me?
If you look in the section just below the section that you're looking at on page 56,
Yeah.
you'll see that there's a 2003 issue was actually closed out. It was refied by the 2012 issue. And then you'll see the 2010 revenue bonds, which that is the city of Dallas, which makes that part of that $30 million that you were speaking of.
I'm missing.
And then it's just in the section right below where you're looking at. So of the The 2010 issue is the city of Dallas, that's not the county. The 2011 issue has